Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to part 2 of my ongoing series on the savagery of Variant 2 and the Savage Champions. Are they indeed savage? I should really stop saying savage so much, but you never know, one of these champions could be savage. For those that are interested in this ongoing series where we look at champions in a bit more detail, see if they're savage or not for the purpose of using in Variant 2, go to the link in the description. It will take you to the playlist, and this will be an ongoing playlist of videos of this nature. The champion on today's agenda is Rhino, and in particular we're going to be looking at the bully buff. Bully! Obviously the last expression of bully was kind of in the positive sense, so bully bad, bully good. I think bully's bad nowadays. Bully is found in 2.1 and basically means for the champions of Rhino, Juggernaut and Abomination, every strike has a 30% chance to remove one buff from the defender and deal an additional 2% of their total health in damage. As per usual, what I'm going to reiterate in this ongoing series is you don't have to use XL champions. A lot of players still opt for the method of doing a parry and heavy attack. Two champions in particular that damage output a huge amount is Domino with the Incinerate synergy with Red Hulk, and as well you do have Archangel as another option, utilizing the parry and heavy attack for a huge bleed, and at the same time if you're lucky to get a poison, transfer that in order to be a neurotoxin. And also I found that you can put an L3 in without receiving any damage back, which normally if you hit through to these enemies, you'll find yourself receiving damage, which is not what we want to see. The great thing about this mode in particular is that a lot of these champions get buffs. And obviously the great thing about these champions receiving buffs is it's positive towards the three champions we mentioned that get bully. Okay, it's time to put the balls in motion with these champions. This lane here, the resistor lane, this first champion, this Symbiote Spider-Man, is a real pain in the butt. I've been trying to train against this one, and I think that for this, you're going to have to look to a champion that is going to be able to minimize the amount of getting to anything that's an L1, L2, and it may be a champion like Dormammu could benefit for this. When I did my initial clear, it was a case of using Rhino just to get up this line here with Dormammu in the crew. And it was helpful to then get up to the end boss. When it comes to this lane, I'm really strongly thinking that most champions will be fine. However, though, in principle, you could use Juggernaut in order to use Stagger to take down the ability of gaining up so many buffs. But this champion here, this Symbiote Spider-Man, is the biggest ball ache ever with the evades. And yeah, getting up to special attacks is really frustrating. A champion like Dormammu will minimize the extent of getting to it, but you could decide to just rough out. It depends if you've got a Dormammu. If you don't, then it may be a bit difficult, but do remember about the XL champion side of things. And if you don't have XL champions, then you're either going to glance or it's going to be a little bit more painful. On this lane here, it's not too bad, especially considering you could use a champion like Dormammu in order to reduce down the power gain, but at the same time, if you stick champions to their L1s, or if you're good at sticking to L2s for a point of avoiding, then you could use a whole host of different champions, and even a case of using Juggernaut could be quite helpful, but do watch out for Symbiote Supreme. Maybe look to champions that don't cast any kind of buffs, that are XL. You know, you've got and also look out for your dexterity. You may want to take that off. There's a few fights in Variant that you may want to take off dexterity so you don't get smacked to hell and back. Also, look out for this lovely fella here, Hyperion. And I would probably say, again, same principle, Dormammu. And just watch out a little bit. You could have good damage output with Juggernaut, to be frank. But yeah, as soon as you've got through all this kind of like armor breaking nonsense, it's a case the champion does just smash into enemies. There's a good amount of build up there with it. And a lot of the times I'm just sticking enemies to like their L1s, L2s, just building them up. Just waiting them to do their special, get back in again, build them up to their L1 again, step back, come back in again. And it's just rinse and repeat. It just works out quite well where you don't actually end up having to do anything else. Just swipe back, hit back in again, build up to the L1, step back, come back in. If you feel that you're not able to build up the champion too close to the L1, then it's a case what you can do is just hit into blocks, But do watch out for that when the enemy tries and does that thing where it intercepts you. So do watch out. Play as kind of well as you possibly can do. And obviously we're just building up now to another L1. Swiping back, going in again. Bit of an L2 push there. Should be fine. Back in again. And you'll see the ticks of the extra damage, 1401. Obviously, if you've got this champion at a higher storage rating, or you've got him at a higher rank, it's a lot easier to damage output a lot more. And we move on with our progression through this. So yeah, there was a little bit further of a deep dive into 2.1, and in particular looking at how much more powerful Rhino, you've got Abomination and also Juggernaut. Now obviously you won't have all the storages that I have, and yeah, it may be difficult to pick up an Abomination at 5-star, but the fact is if you've got them at 4-star, it could work quite well. You can 550 them if you want, in order to lower down the extent of damage you're taking in and the amount of damage you do back. There was a good amount of damage that we saw from Rhino as at 5-star, so that is really good to see. And I've already done my initial clear with it, so it was great to utilize an old champion that isn't exactly considered to be a top champion. Back in the day, I used to have the champion at 345, and I did do a rank down ticket on it, so I wanted the resources back to then put something else up. But I'm still happy with that champion for utilization. Juggernaut is going to be amazing for the furthest right path and going up and around, especially because it's going to deal with this Fury buff here. So that's going to be positive. Having that stagger ability, going in very early on, hitting in the heavy attack, and then you're able to stagger. So 100% chance to eliminate the chance of getting this particular buff. My only criticism towards Juggernaut is that it depends how you want to play him. If you want to be a bit more aggressive, then it could be a bit of an issue. But having the ability to get a small percent chance of a Fury buff could be playing in your favor, the same way that it could be similar to a champion like Rhino. Stagger debuff is going to be helpful towards you and helpful towards your cause. So it's up to you whether or not you want to pair those two off. But I really like Rhino. I actually really prefer Rhino a little bit more to Juggernaut, but that's just, I think, personal preference against this whole situation. Abomination, I'm less sure about. I was hoping to see a lot more poison coming off that champion, as we kind of know from going up against him in content, but I just not seeing it, which is a bit disappointing. So hopefully it's a case that you have those two champions. If not, you may choose to use the Abomination. But yeah, whether or not you're using the heavy attack method or other champions for this, going back to the XL champions, I love Rhino. I think he's a complete powerhouse for this, and was a champion that I utilized a lot going up against the enemy, the final Adaptoid with that pesky evade. It was a case of having the unblockable, finding the unstoppable work quite well, because when you're kind of like you're charging at the enemy, then it's a case that they're going to evade back, and the AI is going to probably hit you first. So it's great to have that unstoppable on, because then you're able to, it allows you to preempt it, and you're able to react out and just like hit through back on it, which is great. I know I've seen people use Archangel for this, but if you want a champion we don't have to overly think and make the situation a little bit easier, if you've got a Rhino, then I'm sure that you already know that he's an absolute powerhouse and a complete savage. So that has been the second edition of the Savage series for Variant 2. If you enjoyed this series and want to keep up to date, then go to the playlist. The link is in the description, as well as the other information for this in the description as well. We're going to be keeping on with this, even though it doesn't look like I made much progress, but do bear in mind, I'll make a load of these videos and then continue on with it, and then do some more, and then continue on with it before I 100% it. So yeah, hopefully you can join me on this ongoing series. And yeah, thanks so much for watching. Hit the like button, subscribe for more Marvel Contest Champions based content, and I shall catch you in the next one. Bye bye for now.